The lamps were lit, and I saw a lot of pieces from his Ganesh sculptures. Some of them are pretty big. They're made from papier-mâché, so they're not very heavy, and they're all hollow inside. They're big enough, I think, to fit right over the top of Kano's head and to cover his body if he's sitting down. With a bit of silk for trimming, and a few garlands of flowers for decoration. So, you think? Jitendra stammered. We should disguise Kano as Ganesh, Johnny Cigar concluded, and push him on the trolley, like a Ganpati devotion, all the way to Nariman Point, right down the middle of the street. It's a great idea, Lynn. But Ganesh Chaturthi finished last week, Joseph said, referring to the annual festival where hundreds of Ganesh figures, some small enough to hold in the hand, and others towering 10 meters tall, were pushed through the city to Chowpatty Beach and then hurled into the sea amid a crowd of close to 1 million people. I myself was in the Mela at Chowpatty. The time for it has finished, Lin Baba. I know. I was there, too. That's what gave me the idea. I don't think it'll matter that the festival is over. I wouldn't think twice if I saw a Ganpati at any time of the year. Would any of you ask questions if you saw a Ganesha on a trolley being wheeled down the street? Ganesh, the elephant-headed god, was arguably the most popular in all the Hindu pantheon, and I was sure no one would think to stop and search a little procession featuring a large sculpture of his form on a moving trolley. I think he is right, Jitendra agreed. Nobody will say anything about a Ganesha. After all, Lord Ganesha is the Lord of Obstacles, nah? The elephant-headed god was known as the Lord of Obstacles and the great solver of problems. People in trouble appealed to him with prayers in much the same way that some Christians appealed to their patron saints. He was also the divine ministrant of writers. It will be not a problem to push a Ganesha to Nariman Point, Joseph's wife, Maria, pointed out. But how to put that Kano bear into the disguise, that is a problem. Just putting him in the dress was a very difficult job. He did not like the dress, one of the bear handlers declared reasonably. He is a man-bear, you know, and sensitive about such things. But he will not mind the Ganesha disguise, his friend added. I know he will think it is very good fun. He is very greedy for attention, I have to say. That is one of his 2 bad habits, that, and flirtations with girls. We were speaking in Hindi, and the last exchange was too swift for me to follow. What did he say? I asked Johnny. What was Kano's bad habit? Flirtations, Johnny replied. With girls. Flirtations? What the hell do they mean? Well, I'm not exactly sure, but I think. No, don't. I interrupted him, disowning the question. Please, don't tell me what it means. I looked around me at the press of expectant faces. For a moment I felt a thrill of wonder and envy that the little community of neighbors and friends worried so much about the problems of 2 itinerant bear handlers, and the bear, of course. That unequivocal involvement, one with another, and its unquestioning support, stronger and more urgent than even the cooperation I'd seen in Prabaker's village, was something I'd lost when I'd left the slum to live in the comfortable, richer world. I'd never really found it anywhere else, except within the high Sierra of my mother's love. And because I knew it with them, once, in the sublime and wretched acres of those ragged huts, I never stopped wanting it and searching for it. Well, I really can't think of another way, I sighed again. If we just cover him with rags or fruit or something and try to push him there, he'll move and make a noise. And if they see us, we'll get stopped. But if we make him look like Ganesh, we can chant and sing and crowd around him and make our own noise, as much noise as we want. And I don't think the cops would ever stop us. What do you think, Johnny? I like it, Johnny said, grinning happily in appreciation of the plan. I think it's a fine plan, and I say we give it a try. Yes, also I like it, Jitendra said, his eyes wide with excitement. But, you know, we must better hurry. The truck will only wait for 1 or 2 hours more, I think so. They all nodded or wagged their heads in agreement. Satish, Jitendra's son, Maria, Farooq and Raghuram, the 2 friends who'd fought and been tied at the ankle by Qasim Ali as a punishment, and Ayub and Siddhartha, the 2 young men who'd run the free clinic since I'd left the slum. Finally, Joseph smiled and gave his assent. With Kano trundling along on all 4s beside us, we made our way through the darkening lanes to the large double hut that was old Rakesh Baba's workshop. The elderly sculptor raised his grizzled brows when we entered his hut, but affected to ignore us and continued with the work of sanding and polishing a newly molded section of a fiberglass religious frieze almost 2 meters in length. He worked at a long table made from thick builder's planks, lashed together and resting on 2 carpenter's trestles. Wood and fiberglass shavings covered the table and lay in chips and whorls, along with rinds of papier-mâché at his bare feet. Sections of the sculpted and molded forms, heads and limbs and bodies with gorgeously rounded bellies, rested on the floor of the hut amid a venerable profusion of plaques, reliefs, statues, and other pieces. He took some convincing. The artist was notoriously cantankerous and he assumed, at first, that we were trying to mock the gods, and him, with a prank or a hoax. In the end, 3 elements persuaded him to help us. First was the bear handler's impassioned appeal to the problem-solving genius of Ganesha, the Lord of Obstacles. The elephant-headed one was, as it turned out, old Rakesh Baba's personal favorite from the abundant plain of the divine. Second, Johnny's subtle suggestion that perhaps the task was beyond the creative skill of the old sculptor proved a telling blow. Rakesh Baba shouted that he could disguise the Taj Mahal itself in a Ganesha sculpture, if he so desired, and the camouflage of a bear was a mere trifle to such a gifted artist, as the whole world knew and proclaimed him to be. Third, and perhaps most influential, was Kano himself. Apparently growing impatient in the lane outside, the burly creature forced its way into the hut and then lay down on its back beside Rakesh Baba, with all 4 paws in the air. The grouchy sculptor was transformed immediately into a giggling, cackling child as he bent to scratch the creature's belly and play with its gently whirling paws. He stood at last to shove all of us but the bear handlers and the bear from his workshop. The wooden cart was wheeled inside, and the wiry, gray-haired artist drew his reed curtains across the entrance. Worried but excited, we waited outside, swapping stories and popping bubbles of news. The slum had survived the last monsoon with little real damage, Siddhartha told me, and no serious outbreaks of illness. Qasim Ali Hussain, celebrating the birth of his 4th grandson, had taken his extended family to his birth village in Karnataka state. He was well and in good spirits, all of the voices confirmed. Jitendra seemed to have recovered, and as much as such a thing as possible, from the death of his wife in the cholera epidemic. Although he'd vowed never to remarry, he worked and prayed and laughed enough to keep the soul bright within his eyes. His son Satish, who'd been sullen and quarrelsome for a time after his mother's death, had at last overcome the aloofness of grieving, and was engaged to a girl he'd known since his earliest memory in the slum. The promised pair was still too young to marry, but their betrothal gave them both joy, and was a commitment to the future that gladdened Jitendra's heart. And one by one, each in his own way, everyone in the group that night praised Joseph, the redeemed one, the new leader who lowered his gaze shyly and only raised his eyes to share his embarrassed smile with Maria, standing at his side. At last, Rakesh Baba pulled aside the reed curtains and beckoned us to enter his workshop. We crowded together and stepped into the golden lamplight. A gasp, some of us breathing in and some puffing out, rustled through our group as we looked at the completed sculpture. Kano was not simply disguised, he was transfigured into the form of the elephant-headed god. A huge head had been fitted over the bear's head, and rested on a pink, round-bellied body, with arms attached. Swaths of light blue silk surrounded the base of the figure where it rested on the trolley. Garlands of flowers were heaped on the flat table and around the neck of the god, concealing the join for the head. "Is it really in there, that Kano bear?" Jitendra asked. At the sound of his voice, the bear turned his head. What we saw was the living god, Ganesha, turn his elephant head to stare at us from his painted eyes. It was the movement of an animal, of course, and utterly unlike a human gesture. The whole group, myself included, flinched in surprise and fright. The children with us squealed, and pushed themselves backwards into the protective vines of adult legs and arms. "Bhagwan," Jitendra breathed. "Wow," Johnny Cigar agreed. "What do you think, Lynn?" "I'm glad I'm not stoned," I muttered, staring as the god tilted his head and uttered a low, moaning sound. I forced myself to act. "Come on, let's do it." We rolled out of the slum with a knot of supporters. Once past the World Trade Center and into the residential boulevard leading to the Back Bay area, we began a tentative chant. Those nearest to the cart put their hands on it and helped to push or pull it along. Those like Johnny and me, on the fringe, clung to the others and added our voices to the chant. As we gathered speed to a fast walk, the chanting grew more vigorous. In a while, many of the helpers seemed to forget that we were bear smugglers, and hurled their voices into devoutly passionate chants and responses, no less inspired, I was sure, than they'd been a week before on the real pilgrimage. As we walked, it occurred to me that the slum had been strangely devoid of pariah dogs. I noticed that there were none visible anywhere on the streets. Remembering how violently the dogs had reacted to Kano's first visit to the slum, I felt moved to mention it to Johnny. "Array, Kutta Naheen," I said. "Gee, there's no dogs here." Johnny, Narayan, Ali, and the few other men who'd heard the comment turned their faces to me quickly and stared, wide-eyed with amazement and worry. Sure enough, seconds later a shrill, whining howl broke out from the footpath to our left. A dog rushed out from its cover and launched itself at us, barking furiously. It was a small, wizened, mangy cur of a thing, not much bigger than a fair-sized Bombay rat, yet the barking was loud enough to pierce the screen of sound in our chanting. It took only seconds, of course, for more pariah dogs to join in the howling affray. They came from left and right, single animals and groups of them, yelping and yowling and growling hideously. In an attempt to drown them out, we raised our chants to greater volume, all the while keeping our wary eyes on the snapping jaws of the dogs. As we approached the back bay area, we passed an open maidan, or field, where a party of wedding musicians dressed in bright red and yellow uniforms, complete with tall, plumed hats, was rehearsing its songs. Seeing our little procession as an opportunity to practice their music on the march, they swung in behind us and struck up a rousing, if not particularly canorous, version of a popular devotional song. Incited by the spectacle that our smuggling mission had become, happy children and pious adults left the footpaths and streamed toward us, joining in the thunderous chants and swelling our numbers to more than 100 souls. Agitated, no doubt, by the wild throng and frenzied barking, Kano the bear swayed from side to side on the cart, turning his head to follow the peaks of sound. At one point we passed a group of strolling policemen, and I risked a glance to see them standing completely still, their mouths open and their heads turning as one, like a row of mouth clown dummies at a carnival sideshow, as we passed. After too many long minutes of that brawling and roistering, we were near enough to Nariman Point to see the tower of the Oberoi Hotel. Worried that we'd never rid ourselves of the wedding band, I ran back to press a bundle of notes into the hand of their bandmaster, with instructions that he should turn right, away from us, and march along Marine Drive. As we neared the sea, he led his men right when we moved left. Emboldened, perhaps, by their successful tour with our little parade, the musicians launched into a medley of dance hits as they marched away toward the brighter lights of the Ocean Drive. Most of the crowd jigged and danced away with them. Even the dogs, lured too far beyond their prowling domain, turned away from us and crept back into the mean shadows that had spawned them. We pushed the cart further along the sea road toward the deserted spot where the truck was parked. Just then I heard a car horn sounding, close by. My heart sinking at the thought that it was the police, I slowly turned to look. Instead, I saw Abdullah, Salman, Sanjay, and Farid standing beside Salman's car. They'd stopped in a wide parking bay, surfaced with gravel stones, that was empty but for them. "Are you all right, Johnny?" I asked. "Can you take it from here?" "Sure, Lynn," he replied. "The truck is just there, ahead of us, you see? We can do it." "Okay, I'll peel off here, man. Let me know how it all goes. I'll see you tomorrow. And, hey, see if you can find me one of those wanted posters, brother." "No problem," he laughed, as I walked away. I crossed the road to join Salman, Abdullah, and the others. They'd been eating takeaway food bought at one of the Nariman caravans parked near the seawall. As I greeted them, Farid swept the rubble of containers and paper towels from the roof of the car onto the gravel park space. I felt the wince of guilt that litter-conscious Westerners invariably experience, and reminded myself that the mess on the road would be collected by rag pickers who depended on the litter for their livelihood. "What the fuck were you doing in that show?" Sanjay asked me when the greetings were made and received. "It's a long story," I grinned. "That's a damn scary Ganpati you got there," he said. "I never saw anything like it. It looked so real. It was like it was moving. I got quite a religious feeling. I tell you, man, I'm going to pay a Bahanchud to light some incense when I get home." "Come on, Lynn," Salman prodded. "What's it all about, yar?" "Well," I groaned, knowing that no explanation would seem sensible. We had to smuggle a bear out of the slum and get him up to this spot, right here, because the cops had a warrant out on him and wanted to arrest him. Smuggle a what? Farid asked politely. A bear. What kind of a bear? A dancing bear, of course, I said stiffly. You know, Lin, Sanjay pronounced, grimacing happily as he picked his teeth clean with a match, you do some very weird shit. Are you talking about my bear? Abdullah asked, suddenly interested. Yes, fuck you. It's really all your fault, if you want to go back far enough. Why do you say it was your bear? Salman wanted to know. Because I arranged that bear, Abdullah replied. I sent him to Lin brother, a long time ago. Why? Well, it was all about the hugging, Abdullah began, laughing. Don't start, I said through pressed lips, warning him off the subject with my eyes. What is all this with fucking bears? Sanjay asked. Are we still talking about bears? Oh, shit, Salman cut in, looking over Sanjay's shoulder. Faisal is in a big hurry. And he's got Nazir with him. This looks like trouble. Another ambassador gravelled to a stop near us. A second car followed, only 2 seconds behind it. Faisal and Amir leapt from the first car. Nazir and Andrew rushed forward from the second. I saw that another man got out of Faisal's car and waited there, watching the approach road. I recognized the fine features of my friend Mahmoud Melbath. One more man, a heavy-set gangster named Raj, waited with the boy Tariq in the second car. They're here, Faisal announced breathlessly when he joined us. They're supposed to come tomorrow, I know, but they're already here. They just joined up with Chua and his guys. Already? How many? Salman asked. Just them, Faisal replied. If we move now, we get all of them. The rest of the gang is at a wedding in Tana. It's like a sign from heaven or something. It's the best chance we'll ever have. But we've got to be damn quick. I can't believe it, Salman muttered, as if to himself. My stomach dropped and then set hard. I knew exactly what they were talking about and what it meant for us. There'd been reports and rumors for days that Chua and his gang within the Walid Lala Council had made contact with the Sapna survivor and 2 of his family members, a brother and a brother-in-law. They were planning a strike against our group. The border war for new gang territory had flared, pitting Chua's mafia council against ours, and Chua was hungry. The Sapna-Iran connection, all survivors from Abdul Ghani's treacherous attempted coup, had learned of the hostility between the councils, and had appeared at just the right moment to capitalize on Chua's greed and ambition. They'd promised to bring weapons, new guns, and lucrative contacts in the Pakistani heroin trade. They were renegades. The Sapna killers were working without Abdul Ghani, and the Iranians had no official support from the Savak. It was hatred that had brought them together. They wanted revenge for the deaths of their friends, and their hate had combined with Chua's to put murder in their minds. The situation had been so tense, for so long, that Salman had infiltrated the Chua gang with his own man, Little Tony, a gangster from Goa who was unknown in Bombay. He'd provided information from the inside. They were his reports that had alerted Salman to the Sapna-Iran connection and the imminent attack. With Faisal's confirmation of their arrival at Chua's house, we all knew there was only one option Salman would consider. Fight, make war, put an end to the Sapna killers and the Iranian spies, once and for all. Finish Chua, absorb his territory, seize his operations. Fuck, man, how lucky can we get? Sanjay whooped, his eyes glittering in the gray-white streetlight. Are you sure? Salman asked, fixing his friend Amir, an older man, with his sternest frown. I'm sure, Salman, Amir drawled, running his hand over the short, gray hair on his blunt head. He twirled the ends of his thick mustache with the same hand as he spoke. I saw them myself. Abdullah's guys, from Iran, they came half an hour ago. The Sapna fucks, you know, they've been there all day. They came in the morning. Little Tony, he told us as soon as he could. We've been watching them for 2 hours at Chua's place. The last time he talked to me, Little Tony said they were all getting together, Chua and his closest guys, the Sapnas, and the guys from Iran. They were waiting for the Iran guys to get here and then they want to hit us. Soon. Maybe tomorrow night, the day after tomorrow, at the latest. Chua sent word for a lot more guys. They're coming from Delhi and Calcutta. They're working out some kind of a plan where they hit us at about 10 places at once, like, to stop us from coming back at them. I told Tony to go back and to let us know when the Iran guys got there. We were watching the place, like usual. Then we saw them walk in, a day early like, but we were pretty sure. Not long after, little Tony came out and lit a cigarette. That was the signal. They're the ones who are after Abdullah. Now they're all in there together, and we're only 2 minutes away. I know it's early, but we have to go. We have to do it now, Salman, in the next 5 minutes. How many, altogether? Salman demanded. Chua and his buddies, Amir answered in his lazy drawl. I think the slow, softly slurring style of the man gave everyone their new heart. He wasn't, or didn't seem to be, anywhere near as nervous as the rest of us. That makes 6. One of them, Manu, is a good man. You know him. He put the Harshan brothers down, all 3 of them, on his own. His cousin Bichchu is also a good fighter. They don't call him the Scorpion for nothing. The rest of them, including Chua, that Matitude, are not much. Then there's the Sapnas. That makes 3 more. And from Iran, 2 more. That's 11. Maybe 1 or 2 more, at the most. Hussein is watching the place. He'll tell us if any more arrived. 11, Salman murmured, avoiding the eyes of the men while he considered the situation. And we are, 11, 12, counting little Tony. But we have to lose 2, on the street outside Chua's house, 1 on each side, to slow up the cops if they come screaming on us while we're inside. I'll make a call before we go in, to keep the cops away, but we need to be sure. Chua might have more guys coming, as well, so we need at least 2 on the outside. I don't mind fighting my way in there, but I don't want to fight my way out again if I don't have to. Hussein is already there. Faisal, you're the number 2 on the street outside, okay? Nobody goes in, or out, but us. No problem, the young fighter agreed. Check the guns, now, with Raj. Get them ready. I'm on it, he said, collecting guns from a few of the men and then jogging over to the cars, where Raj and Mahmood waited. And 2 will have to go back to Kader's house with Tariq, Salman continued. It was Nazir's idea to bring him with us, Andrew put in. He didn't want to leave him behind there when Faisal and Amir came to give us the news. I told him not to bring the kid, but you know how Nazir is when he gets an idea in his head. Nazir can take the boy to Saban Mahmood's house in Versova and watch over him, Salman declared. And you'll go with him. Oh, come on, man. Andrew complained. Why do I have to do that? Why do I have to miss all the action? I need 2 men to watch over old Saban and the boy. Especially the boy. Nazir was right not to leave him. Tariq is a target. As long as he's alive, the council is still Kader's council. If they kill him, Chua will take a lot of power from it. The same goes for old Saban. Take the boy out of the city, and keep him and Saban Mahmood safe. But why do I have to miss the action, man? Why does it have to be me? Send someone else, Salman. Let me go with you to Chua's. Are you going to argue with me? Salman said, his lip curling with anger. No, man, Andrew snarled petulantly. I'll do it. I'll take the kid. That leaves 8 of us, Salman concluded. Sanjay and me, Abdullah and Amir, Raj and little Tony, Farid and Mahmood. 9, I cut in. There's 9 of us. You should take off, Lynn, Salman said quietly, raising his eyes to meet mine. I was just now going to ask you to take a cab and pass the word to Rajubai and the boys at your passport shop. I'm not leaving Abdullah, I said flatly. Maybe you can go back with Nazir, Amir, who was Andrew's close friend, suggested. I left Abdullah once, I declared. I'm not doing it again. It's like fate or something. I've got a feeling, Salman. I've got a feeling not to leave Abdullah. I'm in it. I'm not leaving Mahmood Melbaf, either. I'm with them. I'm with you. Salman held the stare, frowning pensively. It occurred to me, stupidly, that his slightly crooked face, one eye a little lower than the other, his nose bent from a bad break, his mouth scarred in the corner, found a handsome symmetry only then, when the burden of his thoughts creased his features into a determined frown. Okay, he agreed, at last. What the fuck? Andrew exploded. He gets to go, but I do the babysitting job? Settle down, Andrew, Farid said soothingly. No, fuck him. I'm sick of this fucking Gora, man. So Kader liked him, so he went to Afghanistan, so fucking what? Kader's dead, yar. Kader's day is gone. Relax, man, Amir put in. What relax? Fuck Kader, and fuck his Gora, too. You should watch your mouth, I muttered through clenched teeth. I should? He asked, thrusting his face forward pugnaciously. Well, fuck your sister. How's my mouth now? You like that? I don't have a sister, I said evenly in Hindi. A few men laughed. Well, maybe I'll go fuck your mother, he snarled, and make you a new sister. That's good enough, I growled, shaping up to fight him. Get him up. Get your fucking hands up. Let's go. It would have been messy. I wasn't a good fighter, but I knew the moves. I could hit hard. And if I got into real trouble in those years, I wasn't afraid to put the wet end of a knife into another man's body. Andrew was capable. With a gun in his hand, he was deadly. As Amir moved around to support him, directly behind his right shoulder, Abdullah took up a similar position beside me. A fight would become a brawl. We all knew it. But the young Goan didn't raise his hands, and as 1 second became 5, and 10, and 15, it seemed that he wasn't as willing with his fists as he was with his mouth. Nazir broke the standoff. Pushing between us, he seized Andrew by the wrist and a scruff of shirt sleeve. I knew that grip well. I knew that Andrew had to kill the burly Afghan if he wanted to break it. Nazir paused only long enough to give me a bewilderingly cryptic look, part censure and part pride, part anger and part red-eyed affection, before he shoved the young Goan backwards through the circle of men. At the car, he pushed Andrew into the driver's seat and then climbed into the back with Tariq. Andrew started the car and sped away spitting gravel and dust as he wheeled around and headed back toward Marine Drive. As the car swept past me, I saw Tariq's face at the window. It was pale, with only the eyes, like wild paw prints in snow, betraying any hint of the mind or the mood within. Maijata who? I repeated when the car had passed. I'm going. Everyone laughed. I wasn't sure if it was at the vehemence of my tone or the blunt simplicity of the Hindi phrase. I think we got that, Lynn, Salman said. I think that's very clear, no? Okay. I'll put you with Abdullah, out the back. There's a lane behind Shua's house, Abdullah, you know it. It has 2 feeds from other lanes, one into the main street, and one around the corner to other houses in the block. At the back of Chua's house there's a yard. I've seen it. There are 2 windows, both with heavy bars, and only one door to the house. It's down 2 steps. You 2 hold that place. Nobody goes in when we start. If we do right, some of them will try to make a run for it out there. Don't let them get past you. Stop them right there, in the yard. The rest of us will go in through the front. What about the guns, Faisal? 7, he answered. 2 short shotgun, 2 automatic, 3 revolver. Give me one of the automatics, Salman ordered. Abdullah, you take the other one. You'll have to share it, Lynn. The shotguns are no good inside, it's gonna get very close in there, and we want to be real sure what we're shooting at. I want them on the street outside, for maximum coverage if we need it. Faisal, you take the shotguns, and give one to Hussein. When we're finished, we'll go out the back way, past Abdullah and Lynn. We won't go out the front, so put holes in anything that tries to go in or out once we're in there. The 3 other guns are for Farid, Amir, and Mahmoud. Raj, you'll have to share with us. Okay? The men nodded and wagged their heads in agreement. Listen, if we wait, we can get 30 more men and 30 guns to go in with us. You know that, but we might miss them. As it is, we've already talked for 10 minutes too long. If we hit them now, quick and hard, before they know it, we can take them out, and none of them will get away. I want to finish them, and finish this business, right now, tonight. But I want to leave it up to you. I don't want to make you go in if you don't feel ready. Do you want to wait for more men, or go now? One by one the men spoke, quickly, most of them using the one word, Abi, meaning now. Salman nodded, then closed his eyes and muttered a prayer in Arabic. When he looked up again, he was committed, fully committed for the first time. His eyes were blazing with hatred and the fearsome killing rage he'd kept at bay. Sach Awurhimit, he said, looking each man in the eye. Truth and courage. Sach Awurhimit, they replied. Without another word, the men claimed their guns, climbed into the 2 cars, and drove the few short minutes to Chua's home on fashionable Sardar Patel Road. Before I could order my thoughts and even consider, clearly, what I was doing, I found myself creeping along a narrow lane with Abdullah in a darkness deep enough for me to feel the widening of my straining eyes. Then we climbed over a sheer wooden fence and dropped down into the backyard of the enemy's house. We stood together in the dark for a few moments, checking the luminous dials on our watches, and listening hard as we let our eyes adjust. Abdullah whispered beside me, and I almost jumped at the sound. "Nothing," he breathed, his voice like the rustle of a woolen blanket. "There's no one here, no one near. Looks okay," I answered, aware that my whispering voice was raspy with hard-breathing fear. There were no lights at the windows or behind the blue door at the rear of the house. "Well, I kept my promise," Abdullah whispered mysteriously. "What? You made me promise to take you with me when I killed Chua. Remember?" "Yeah," I answered, my heart beating faster than a healthy heart should. "You gotta be careful, I guess." "I will be careful, Lin brother." "No, I mean, you gotta be careful what you wish for in life, nah." "I will try to open that door," Abdullah breathed, close to my ear. "If it will open, I will go inside." "What? You wait here and stay near the door." "What? You wait here and—" "We're both supposed to stay here," I hissed. "I know," he replied, creeping with leopard stealth toward the door. In my clumsier way, looking more like a cat waking stiffly from a long sleep, I crept after him. As I reached the 2 wide steps leading down to the blue door, I saw him open it and slip inside the house like a shadow thrown by a swooping bird. He pushed the door shut soundlessly behind him. Alone, in the dark, I took my knife from the sheath in the small of my back, and enclosed the hilt in my right fist, dagger point down. Staring out into the darkness, I put all of my focus on the beating of my heart, trying by force of will to slow its too rapid pace. It worked, after a time. I felt the count reducing, calming me further in turn as the meditative loop closed around a single, still thought. That thought was of Qadarbhai, and the formula he'd made me repeat so often. The wrong thing, for the right reasons. And I knew, as I repeated the words in the fearing dark, that the fight with Chua, the war, the struggle for power, was always the same, everywhere, and it was always wrong. Salman and the others, no less than Chua and the Sapna killers and all the rest of them, were pretending that their little kingdoms made them kings. That their power struggles made them powerful. And they didn't. They couldn't. I saw that then so clearly that it was like understanding a mathematical theorem for the first time. The only kingdom that makes any man a king is the kingdom of his own soul. The only power that has any real meaning is the power to better the world. And only men like Qasim Ali Hussein and Johnny Cigar were such kings and had such power. Unnerved and afraid, I pressed my ear to the door and strained to hear anything of Abdullah or the others within. The fear that twisted in me wasn't the fear of death. I wasn't afraid to die. I was afraid of being so injured or wounded that I couldn't walk, or couldn't see, or, for some other reason, couldn't run from capture. Above all things I was afraid of that, of being captured and caged again. As I pressed my ear to the door, I prayed that no wound would weaken me. Let it happen here, I prayed. Let me get through this, or let me die here. I don't know where they came from. I felt the hands on me before I heard a single sound. 2 men slammed me round and hard up against the door. Instinctively, I struck out with my right hand. "Chaku! Chaku!" One of the men shouted. "Knife! Knife!" I couldn't swing the knife up quickly enough to stop them. One man pinned me to the door by the throat. He was a big man, and very strong. The other man used 2 hands, trying to force me to drop the knife. He wasn't quite so strong, and he couldn't make me drop the weapon. Then a third man hopped down the steps from the darkness, and with those extra hands they twisted my grip and forced me to drop the knife. "Gora Khan Hai?" the new man asked. "Who's the white guy?" "Bahan Shud. Malam Nahi," the strong man replied. "The sister fucker. I don't know." He stared at me, obviously bewildered to have stumbled on a foreigner who was listening at the door and armed with a knife. "Khan Hai turn?" he asked in an almost friendly tone. "Who are you?" I didn't reply. All I could think was that I had to warn Abdullah somehow. I couldn't understand how they'd reached that spot without making a sound. The back gate must have swung silently on its hinges. Their shoes or chapals must have been soled with soft rubber. Whatever. I'd let them sneak up on me, and I had to warn Abdullah. I suddenly struggled as if I was trying to break free. The feint had its effect. The men all shouted at me, and 3 pairs of hands slammed me against the blue door. One of the smaller men scrambled to my left side, pinning my left arm to the door. The other short man held my right arm. In the wrestle, I managed to kick my boots hard against the door 3 times. Abdullah must have heard it, I thought. It's okay. I've warned him. He must know something's wrong. Can I turn? The big man asked again. He took one hand from my throat and bunched it into a fist poised menacingly close to my head, just below the line of sight of my eyes. Who are you? Again I refused to answer, staring at him. Their hands, as hard as shackles, held me to the door. He slammed his fist into my face. I managed to move my head, just slightly, but I felt the blow on my jaw and cheek. He had rings on his fingers, or he was using a knuckle duster. I couldn't see it, but I could feel the hard metal chipping bone. What you are doing here? He asked in English. Who you are? I kept silent, and he struck me again, the fist ramming into my face 3 times. I know this, I thought. I know this. I was back in prison, in Australia, in the punishment unit, the fists and boots and batons. I know this. He paused, waiting for me to speak. The 2 smaller men grinned at him, then at me. Aur, one of them said. More. Hit him again. The big man drew back and punched at my body. They were slow, deliberate, professional punches. I felt the wind empty from my body, and it was as if my life itself was draining from me. He moved up the body to my chest and throat and face. I felt myself wading into that black water where beaten boxers stagger and fall. I was done. I was finished. I wasn't angry with them. I'd fucked up. I'd let them sneak up on me, walk up on me, probably. I'd gone there to fight, and I should have been on guard. It was my fault. Somehow, I'd missed them, and messed up, and it was my own fault. All I wanted to do was warn Abdullah. I kicked back feebly at the door, hoping he would hear it and get away, get away, get away. I fell through perfect darkness, and the weight of all the world fell with me. When I hit the floor I heard shouts, and I realized that Abdullah had wrenched open the door, letting us fall into him. In the dark, bloody-eyed and swollen, I heard a gun firing twice, and saw the flashes. Then light filled the world, and I blinked into the glare as another door opened somewhere, and I saw men rushing in on us. The gun fired again twice, 3 times, and I rolled out from under the big man to see my knife, close to my eyes, shining on the ground near the open blue door. I grabbed for the knife just as one of the smaller men tried to crawl over me and out the door. Without thinking, I swept it backwards and into his hip. He screamed, and I scrambled up to him, slashing the knife across his face near the eyes. It's amazing how little of the other guy's blood, or a lot of it, if you can manage it, puts power in your arms and pain-killing adrenaline in your aching wounds. Wild with rage, I swung round to see Abdullah locked in a struggle with 2 men. There were bodies on the floor of the room. I couldn't tell how many. Gunshots cracked and drummed from all around and above us in the other rooms of the building. They seemed to come from several places in the house at the same time. There were shouts and screams. I could smell shit and piss and blood in the room. Someone had a gut wound. I hoped that it wasn't me. My left hand slapped at my belly and searched, frisking myself for wounds. Abdullah was punching it out with the 2 men. They were wrestling, gouging, biting. I began to crawl toward them, but I felt a hand on my leg pulling me backward. It was a strong hand. A very strong hand. It was the big guy. He'd been shot, I was sure, but I couldn't see any blood on his shirt or his pants. He dragged me in as if I was a turtle caught in a net. When I reached him, I raised the knife to stab him, but he beat me to it. He slammed his fist into the right side of my groin. He'd missed the killing blow, a direct hit, but it was still enough to make me curl and roll over in agonizing pain. I felt him lurch past me, actually using my body for leverage as he pushed himself to his feet. I rolled back, retching bile, to see him stand and take a step toward Abdullah. I couldn't let it happen. Too many times, my heart had withered on the thought of Abdullah's death. Alone, in a circle of guns. I thrashed against the pain, and in a scrabble of bloody, slipping movements I sprang up and plunged my knife into the big guy's back. It was high, just under the scapula. I felt the bone shiver under the blade, diverting the point sideways toward the shoulder. He was strong. He took 2 more steps, dragging my body with him on the hook of the knife, before he crumpled and fell. I fell on top of him, looking up to see Abdullah. He had his fingers in a man's eyes. The man's head was bent backwards against Abdullah's knee. The man's jaw gave way, and his neck cracked like a piece of kindling. Hands pulled at me, dragging me toward the back door. I struck out, but strong, gentle hands twisted the knife from my fingers. Then I heard the voice, Mahmoud Melbaf's voice, and I knew we were safe. "Come on, Lynn," the Iranian said, quickly and too quietly, it seemed, for the bloody violence that had just roared around us. "I need a gun," I mumbled. "No, Lynn. It is over." "Abdullah?" I asked, as Mahmoud dragged me into the yard. "He's working," he replied. I heard the screams inside the house ending, one by one, like birds falling silent as night moves across the stillness of a lake. "Can you stand? Can you walk? We must leave now." "Fuck, yes, I can make it." As we reached the back gate, a column of our men rushed past us. Faisal and Hussein carried one man between them. Farid and little Tony carried another. Sanjay had a man's body on his right shoulder. He was sobbing as he clutched the body to his chest and shoulder. "We lost Salman," Mahmoud announced, following my gaze as we let the men rush past us. "And Raj, also. Amir is bad, alive, but hurt bad. Salman." The last voice of reason in the Qatar Council. The last Qatar man. I hurried down the lane to the waiting cars and I felt the life draining from me, just as it had when the big man was hitting me at the blue door. It was over. The old Mafia Council was gone with Salman. Everything had changed. I looked at the others in my car, Mahmoud, Farid, and the wounded Emir. They'd won their war. The Sapna killers were gone at last. A chapter, a book of life and death that had opened with Sapna's name, was closed forever. Qatar was avenged. Abdul Ghani's mutinous betrayal was finally defeated. And the Iranians, Abdullah's enemies, were no more. As silent as that bloody, unscreaming house where Abdullah was working. And Shua's gang was crushed. The border war was over. It was over. The wheel had turned through one full revolution, and nothing would ever be the same. They'd won, but they were all crying. All of them, crying. I let my head fall back on the seat of the car. Night, that tunnel of lights joining promise to prayer, flew with us at the windows. Slowly, desolately, the fist of what we'd done unclenched the clawed palm of what we'd become. Anger softened into sorrow, as it always does, as it always must. And no part of what we'd wanted, just an hour's life before, was as rich in hope or meaning as a single teardrop's fall. "What?" Mahmoud asked, his face close to mine. "What did you say?" "I hope that bear got away," I mumbled through broken, bleeding lips as the stricken spirit began to rise from my wounded body, and sleep, like fog in morning forests, moved through my sorrowing mind. "I hope that bear got away." Chapter 42. Sunlight shattered on the water, shedding streaks in crystal brilliant slivers across waves rolling swollen on the broad meniscus of the bay. Birds of fire in the approaching sunset wheeled and turned as one in their flocks, like banners of waving silk. From a low-walled courtyard on the white marble island of Haji Ali Mosque, I watched pilgrims and pious local residents wend and weave, leaving the shrine for the shore along the flat stone path. The incoming tide would submerge the path, they knew, and then only boats could bring them home. Those who'd sorrowed or repented, like others on previous days, had cast garlands of flowers upon the shallower, receding sea. Riding the returning tide, those orange-red and faded gray-white flowers floated back, garlanding the path itself with the love, loss, and longing that was preyed upon the water by 1,000 broken hearts each wave-determined day. And we, that band of brothers, had come to the shrine to pay our last respects, as they say, and pray for the soul of our friend Salman Mustan. It was the first time since the night he'd been killed that we'd gathered as a group. For weeks after the battle with Chua and his gang we'd separated, to hide and to heal our wounds. There'd been an outcry in the press, of course. The words carnage and massacre were spread across the pages of the Bombay dailies like butter on a prison guard's sugared bun. Calls had rung out for justice, undefined, and punishment, unremitting. And there was no doubt that the Bombay police could have made arrests. They certainly knew which gang was responsible for the little heaps of bodies they'd found in Chua's house. But there were 4 good reasons not to act. Reasons that were more compelling, for the city's cops, than the unrighteous indignation of the press. First, There was no one from inside the house, on the streets outside, or anywhere else in Bombay who was willing to testify against us, even off the record. Second, the battle had put an end to the Sapna killers, which was something the cops would have been very glad to take care of personally. Third, the Waladlala gang under Chua's leadership had killed a policeman, months before, when he'd stumbled into one of their major drug deals near Flora Fountain. The case had remained unsolved, officially, because the cops had nothing they could take into court. But they'd known, almost from the day it had happened, that Chua's men had spilled the blood. The bloodshed in Chua's house was very close to what the cops themselves had wanted to do to the rat and his men, and would have accomplished, sooner or later, if Salman hadn't beaten them to it. And fourth, the payment of 1 crore of rupees, appropriated from Chua's operations and applied in liberal smears to a small multitude of forensic palms, had put a helpless shrug in all the right constabulary's shoulders. Privately, the cops told Sanjay, who was the new leader of the Kader Khan Council, that the clock was ticking on him, and he'd used up all his chances on that one throw of the dice. They wanted peace and continued prosperity, of course, and, if he didn't pull his men into line, they would do it for him. And by the way, they told him after accepting his 10 million rupee bribe, and just before they threw him back onto the street, that guy Abdullah, in your outfit, we don't want to see him again. Ever. He was dead once, in Bombay. He'll be dead again, for good this time, if we see him. One by one, after weeks of lying low, we'd made our way back into the city and back to the jobs we'd done in the Sanjay gang, as it had become known. I returned from hiding in Goa and took up my position in the passport operation with Vilu and Krishna. When the call finally went out for us to gather at Haji Ali, I rode to the shrine on my Enfield bike, and walked with Abdullah and Mahmud Melbaf across the rippling wavelets of the bay. Mahmud led the prayers, kneeling at the front of our group. The little balcony, one of many surrounding the island mosque, was ours alone. Facing toward Mecca, and with the breeze filling and then falling from his white shirt, Mahmud spoke for all the men who knelt or stood behind him. Praise be to God, Lord of the universe, the compassionate, the merciful, sovereign of the day of judgment. You alone we worship, and to you alone we turn for help. Guide us to the straight path. Farid, Abdullah, Amir, Faisal, and Nazir, the Muslim core of the council, knelt behind Mahmud. Sanjay was a Hindu. Andrew was a Christian. They knelt beside me and behind the praying group. I stood with my head bowed and my hands clasped in front of me. I knew the words of the prayers and I knew the simple standing, kneeling, and bowing observations. I could have joined in. I knew that Mahmud and the others would have been delighted if I had. But I couldn't bring myself to kneel with them. The separation that they found so easy and instinctual, this is my criminal life, over here, and that's my religious life, over there, was impossible for me. I did speak to Salman, whispering my hope that he'd found peace, wherever he was. Yet I was too self-consciously aware of the darkness in my heart to offer more than that tiny prayer. So I stood in silence, feeling like an imposter, a spy on that island of devotions, as the amethyst evening blessed the balcony of praying men with gold and lilac light. And the words of Mahmud's prayer seemed a perfect fit for my withered honor and my thinning pride. Those who have incurred your wrath, those who have gone astray. At the end of prayers we hugged one another, according to custom, and made our way back along the path toward the shore. Mahmud was leading the way. We'd all prayed, in our own ways, and we'd all cried for Salman, but we didn't look the part of devout visitors to the holy shrine. We all wore sunglasses. We all wore new clothes. Everyone, except me, carried a year or more of smugglers' wages in gold chains, first-tier watches, rings, and bracelets. And we swaggered. We walked the walk. The little dance step that fighting-fit gangsters do when they're armed and dangerous. It was a bizarre procession, and one so menacing that we had to work hard to make the professional beggars on the island pathway take the sheaves of rupee notes we'd brought as alms. The men had 3 cars parked near the seawall. It was almost exactly where I'd stood with Abdullah on the night I met Kaderbai. My bike was parked beyond them, and at the cars I paused to say goodbye. Come and have a meal with us, Lynn, Sanjay offered, putting real affection in the invitation. I knew the meal would be fun, after the melancholy observations at the shrine, and that it would include a choice of drugs and a choice of happy, silly, pretty girls. I was grateful for the offer, but I refused. Thanks, man, but I'm meeting someone. Array, bring her along, Yar, Sanjay suggested. It's a girl, isn't it? Yeah, it's a girl. But, we have to talk. I'll see you guys later. Abdullah and Nazir wanted to walk me to my bike. We'd only taken a few steps when Andrew ran up behind us and called me to stop. Lynn, he said quickly, nervously, what happened with us in the car park and all? I just want to say. I'm sorry, Yar. I've been wanting to make, well, an apology, you know? It's okay. No, it's not okay. He pulled at my arm, near the elbow, leading me away from Nazir and just out of his hearing. Leaning in close to me, he spoke softly and quickly. I'm not sorry for what I said about Qadrbhai. I know he was the boss and all, and I know you kind of loved him. Yeah, I kinda did, but still, I'm not sorry for what I said about him. You know, all his holy preaching, it didn't stop him from handing old Majid over to Ghani and his Sapna guys when he needed someone to take the fucking fall, and keep the cops off his back. Majid was supposed to be his friend, Yar. But he let them cut him up, just to throw the cops off the case. Well, and all those rules, about this and that and what all, you know, they came to nothing. Sanjay has put me in charge of Chua's girls and the videos. And Faisal and Amir, they're running the garage. We're gonna make fucking crores out of it. I'm getting my place on the council, and so are they. So, Qadrbhai's day is over, just like I said it was. I looked back into Andrew's camel brown eyes, and let out a deep breath. Dislike had been simmering since the night in the car park. I hadn't forgotten what he'd said, and how close we'd come to fighting it out. His little speech had made me angrier still. If we hadn't just been to a funeral service for a friend we'd both liked, I probably would have hit him already. You know, Andrew, I muttered, not smiling, I gotta tell ya, I'm not getting much comfort from this little apology of yours. That's not the apology, Lynn, he explained, frowning in puzzlement. The apology is for your mother and for what I said about her. I'm sorry, man, I'm really, really sorry for what I said. It was a very shitty thing to say, about your mother or anybody's mother. Nobody should say shitty things like that about a guy's mother. You would have been well within your rights, Yar, to take a fucking shot at me. And, I'm damn glad you didn't. Mothers are sacred, Yar, and I'm sure your mother is a very fine lady. So, please, I'm asking you, please accept my apology. It's okay, I said, putting out my hand. He seized the hand in both of his, and shook it vigorously. Abdullah, Nazir, and I turned away and walked to the bike. Abdullah was unusually quiet. The silence he carried with him was ominous and unsettling. Are you going back to Delhi tonight? I asked. Yes, he answered. At midnight. You want me to go to the airport with you? No thank you. It is better not. There should be no police looking at me. If you are there, they will look at us. But maybe I will see you in Delhi. There is a job in Sri Lanka, you should do it with me. I don't know, man, I demurred, grinning in surprise at his earnestness. There's a war on in Sri Lanka. There is no man, and no place, without war, he replied, and it struck me that it was the most profound thing he'd ever said to me. The only thing we can do is choose a side, and fight. That is the only choice we get, who we fight for, who we fight against. That is life. I hope there's more to it than that, brother. But, shit, maybe you're right. I think you can do this with me, he pressed, clearly troubled by what he was asking me to do. This is the last work for Qadrbhai. What do you mean? Kader Khan, he asked me to do this job for him, when what is it, the sign, I think, or the message, when it comes from Sri Lanka. Now, the message, it has come. I'm sorry, brother, I don't know what you're talking about, I stated softly, not wanting to make it harder for him. Just take it easy, and explain it to me. What message? He spoke to Nazir quickly, in Urdu. The older man nodded several times and then said something about names, or not mentioning names. Nazir turned his head to face me, and favored me with a wide, warm smile. In the Sri Lanka war, Abdullah explained, there is fighting, Tamil Tigers against Sri Lanka army. Tigers are Hindus, Sinhalese, they are Buddhist. But in the middle of them, there are the others, Tamil Muslims, with no guns and no army. Everybody kill them, and nobody fight for them. They need passports and money, gold money. We go to help them. Qadrbai, Nazir added, he make this plan. Only 3 men. Abdullah, and me, and 1 Gora, you. 3 men. We go. I owed him. Nazir would never mention that fact, I knew, and he wouldn't hold it against me if I didn't go with him. We'd been through too much together. But I did owe him my life. It would be very hard to refuse him. And there was something else, something wise, perhaps, and fervently generous, in that rare, wide smile he'd given me. It seemed that he was offering me more than just the chance to work with him and work off my debt. He blamed himself for Cater's death, but he knew that I still felt guilty and ashamed that I hadn't been there with him, pretending to be his American, when Cater had died. He's giving me a chance, I thought, as I let my eyes move from his to Abdullah's and back again. He's giving me a way to close the book on it. So, when would you be going on this trip? Roughly speaking? Soon, Abdullah laughed. A few months, no more than that. I am going to Delhi. I will send someone to bring you when the time is coming. 2, 3 months, Lin brother. I heard a voice in my head, or not a voice, really, but just words in whispered echoes like stones hissing across the still surface of a lake. Killer. He's a killer. Don't do it. Get away. Get away now. And the voice was right, of course. Dead right. And I wish I could say that it took me more than those few heartbeats to make up my mind to join him. 2, 3 months, I replied, offering my hand. He shook it, putting both of his hands over mine. I looked at Nazir and smiled as I spoke into his eyes. We'll do Cater's job. We'll finish it. Nazir's jaw locked tight, bunching the muscles of his cheeks and exaggerating the downward curve of his mouth. He frowned at his sandaled feet as if they were disobedient puppies. Then he suddenly hurled himself at me, and locked his hands behind me in a punishing hug. It was the violent, wrestler's hug of a man whose body had never learned to speak the language of his heart, except when he was dancing, and it ended as abruptly and furiously as it had begun. He whipped his thick arms away and shoved me backward with his chest, shaking his head and shuddering as if a shark had passed him in shallow water. He looked up quickly, and the warmth that reddened his eyes vied with a grim warning clamped in the bad luck horseshoe of his mouth. I knew that if I ever raised that moment of affection with him, or referred to it in any way, I would lose his friendship forever. I kicked the bike to life and straddled it, pushing away from the curb with my legs and pointing it in the direction of Nana Chowk and Kalaba. Sach al Rahimat, Abdullah called out as I rode past him. I waved and nodded, but I couldn't give the answering call to the slogan. I didn't know how much truth or courage was in my decision to join them on their mission to Sri Lanka. Not much, it seemed to me, as I rode away from them, from all of them, and surrendered to the warm night, and the press and pause of traffic. A blood-red moon was rising from the sea as I reached the back bay road leading to Nariman Point. I parked the bike beside a cold drink stall, locked it, and threw the keys to the manager, who was a friend from the slum. With the moon behind me, I set out along the footpath beside a long curve of sandy beach where fishermen often repaired their nets and battered boats. There was a festival on that night in the Sassoon Dock area. The celebrations had drawn most of the local people from the huts and shelters on the beach. The road where I walked was almost deserted. And then I saw her. She was sitting on the edge of an old fishing boat that was half buried on the beach. Only the prow and a few meters of the longboat's gunwales protruded from the surrounding waves of sand. She was wearing a long, salwar top over loose pants. Her knees were drawn up, and she was resting her chin on her arms as she stared out at the dark water. "This is why I like you, you know," I said, sitting down beside her on the rail of the beached fishing boat. "Hello, Lynn," she replied, smiling, her green eyes as dark as the water. "I'm glad to see you. I thought you weren't coming. Your message sounded kind of urgent. I nearly didn't get it. It was just lucky that I ran into Didier on his way to the airport, and he told me." "Luck is what happens to you when fate gets tired of waiting," she murmured. "Fuck you, Carla," I replied, laughing. "Old habits," she grinned, "die hard, and lie harder." Her eyes moved across my features for a moment, as if she was searching a map for a familiar reference point. Her smile slowly faded. "I'm going to miss Didier." "Me, too," I muttered, thinking that he was probably in the air already and on his way to Italy. "But I think he'll be back before too long." "Why?" "I put the Zodiac George in his apartment to look after it." "Ooh," she winced, making a perfect kiss of her perfect mouth. Yeah, if that doesn't bring him back quick, nothing will. You know how he loves that apartment. She didn't answer, but her stare tightened in the intensity of her concentration. Khalid's here, in India, she remarked flatly, watching my eyes. Where? In Delhi. Well, near Delhi, actually. When? The report came in 2 days ago. I had it checked. I think it's him. What report? She looked away, towards the sea, and breathed a long, slow sigh. Jeet has access to all the wire services. One of them sent a report about a new spiritual leader named Khalid Ansari, who walked all the way from Afghanistan, and was pulling in big crowds of followers wherever he went. When I saw it, I asked Jeet to check it out for me. His people sent a description, and it fits. Wow, thank God, thank God. Yeah, maybe, she murmured. Something of the old mischief and mystery flared in her eyes. And you're sure it's him? Sure enough to go there myself, she answered, looking at me once more. Do you know where he is? Now, I mean? Not exactly, but I think I know where he's going. Where? Varanasi. Qadarbai's teacher, Idris, lives there. He's very old now, but he still teaches there. Qadarbai's teacher? I asked, stunned to think that in all the hundreds of hours I'd spent with Kader, listening to his philosophy lectures, he'd never mentioned the name. Yes, I met him once, right at the start, when I first came to India, with Kader. I don't know, I guess you'd call it a nervous breakdown. There was this plane, going to Singapore. I don't even know how I got on it. And I broke down, just, kind of, cracked up. And Kader, he was on the same plane. And he put his arm around me. I told him everything, absolutely, everything. And next thing, I'm in this cave with a giant Buddha statue and this teacher named Idris, Kader's teacher. There was a pause while she let those memories pull her into the past, but then she shook herself free, and back into the moment. I think that's where Khalid is going, to see Idris. The old guru fascinated him. He was obsessed about meeting him. I don't know why he never got around to it then, but I think that's where he's headed now. Or maybe he's already there. He used to ask me about him all the time. Idris taught Kader everything he knew about resolution theory and... About what? Resolution theory. That's what Kader called it, but he said it was Idris who gave it that name. It was his philosophy of life, Kader's philosophy, about how the universe is always moving toward complexity. I interrupted. I know. I talked about it a lot with him. But he never called it resolution theory. And he never talked about Idris. That's funny, because I think he loved Idris, you know, like a father. Once, he called him the teacher of all teachers. And I know he wanted to retire up there, not far from Varanasi, with Idris. Anyway, that's where I'm going to start looking for Khalid. When? Tomorrow. Okay, I responded, avoiding her eyes. Is this anything to do with, well, you and Khalid, from before? You can be such a fuck sometimes, Lynn, you know that? I looked up sharply, but I didn't respond. Did you know Ulla's in town? She asked after a while. No, when did she get in? Have you seen her? That's just it. I got a message from her. She was at the president, and she wanted to see me right away. Did you go? I didn't want to, she mused. If you got the message, would you have gone? I guess, I answered, staring out at the bay where moonlight crested on the serpent curves of a gently rolling sea. But not for her. For Madana. I saw him a while ago. He's still nuts about her. I saw him tonight, she said quietly. Tonight? Yes. Just before. With her. It freaked me out. I went to the hotel and up to her room. There was another guy there, a guy named Ramesh. Madana told me about him. They're friends. So, he opens the door, and I walk in, and I see Ulla, sitting on the bed, resting her back against the wall. And Madana, he's lying across her legs, with his head back near her shoulder. That face. I know. It's a hell of a mess. It was weird. It was freaking me out, the whole scene. I'm not sure why. And Ulla, she tells me she inherited a lot of money from her father. They're very rich, you know, Ulla's family. They practically own the town in Germany where she was born, but they cut her off cold when she was heavy into drugs. She never got a thing from them for years, not until her father died. So when she inherited the money, she got this idea to come back and look for Madana. She felt guilty, she said, and she couldn't live with herself. And she found him. He was waiting for her. And they were together when I went to see her, like some kind of a love story. Damn, if he wasn't right about her, I said softly. He told me. He knew she'd come back for him, and she really did. I never believed it for a second. I thought he was just crazy. The way they were sitting together, with him across her legs. You know the Pietà? Michelangelo? It looked exactly like that. It was so strange. It really shook me up. Some things are so weird they make you angry, you know? What did she want? What do you mean? Why did she call you to the hotel? Oh, I get it, she said, with a little smile. Ulla always wants something. I raised an eyebrow, returning her stare, but said nothing. She wanted me to arrange a passport for Modena. He's been here for years. He's an overstayer, and he's got a few problems with the Spanish police, under his own name. He needs a new passport to get back into Europe. He could pass for Italian. Or maybe Portuguese. Leave it to me, I said calmly, thinking that I knew the reason,